Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. We're back. It feels like it's been forever, but we're very excited to get into things. Starting off this week by talking about the results from the Pokemon World Championships, where one of the two of us seemed to do pretty well at the tournament. I'll let you guys guess which one of the two of us that was. We'll, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. We'll be going over a few new reveals that came out at the World Championships, including a ton of new cards, a brand new mechanic, and a returning old school mechanic, game mechanic, that is. And then we'll wrap up this week's episode by talking about Obsidian Flames, the impact it's having on the current meta, and maybe a little bit of an early sneak peek as to what we think may happen at the first regionals in Pittsburgh, because it's right around the corner, Azul. We get pretty much no time to rest. And then, of course, after all that is said and done, we're going to get over to the Patreon and get into our bonus episode for the week. My name is Chip Ritchie, joined here, as always, by my friend and co-host and World Championship top 4 finisher, Azul GG. Azul, round of applause. Congratulations. Great finish. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, Chip. Yeah, I just got back uh yesterday. Wait, what is today? Tuesday. Yeah, I got back yesterday from Japan. I was there for another week afterwards. Yeah, we're a little bit behind on everything, which kind of sucks. It feels pretty bad. We had a pretty good track record up till this point. We did like miss one episode at the end of last year,
Yeah.
but yeah, missed 2 weeks now, which kind of sucks. But some unfortunate complications for the first week, and yeah, the second week we just weren't. I wasn't back yet, and Chip wasn't really back into the groove of things. So it feels good to finally be catching up with everything. And then yeah, I'm gonna get back into streaming and all that stuff this week. I was gonna stream today, but because we get to move the podcast from yesterday to today, I was just getting back yesterday. I decided to like not stream today and just kind of do laundry, meal prep, all that stuff. Get back into the swing of things, so to say. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Uh, Top 4 at Worlds. I felt pretty relieved once I got into like top 8, but getting top 4, there's definitely a big difference between
Oh, yeah.
top 8 and top 4. It's like a pretty big jump in like overall like prizing and stuff like that. So definitely felt definitely pretty happy with the top 4 finish for sure. I was a little bit nervous about my trophy as well because I wanted to try and
Oh, did it
carry it
make it home in
on.
one piece? It's all good?
I haven't opened the box yet, but the box is in pretty good shape. So I had to check it. So
No
uh
shot.
yeah, because it's too tall for the carry
Live
on.
reveal right now on the podcast.
I
See
don't think
Pikachu's
so.
little trophies falling off.
Hopefully not. I'll probably check it later today just to make sure it survived. I think it'll probably be fine. The box looks like it didn't really get
How is that not the
roughed up at
first
all.
thing you looked at whenever you got home, dude? I would be so nervous, like, "Oh, hopefully my trophy made it."
I mean, there's not much I can do about it. I mean, unless like I don't know if like Pokemon would replace it if it got damaged on the way back. I guess I could ask if it did, but
Yeah, that you
if they
could
could,
probably ask. No harm
yeah,
in doing that.
yeah. I just assumed they probably wouldn't, but that's why it's like kind of doesn't it's, like concern me too much because like if it is damaged and I could get it replaced, then I'd want to solve that as soon as possible, right? But my current assumption is that they wouldn't replace it, so um, yeah, hopefully it's fine. I'll probably take a look at it after we're done with the podcast. How have you been, Chip? You've been back a little bit sooner than I have. How you been adjusting post
Yeah.
uh post travel?
Yeah, so the jet lag absolutely kicked my butt on the way back. It wasn't great in Japan. Like I was waking up in Japan at like 4 a.m. almost every day, having to force myself to try to go back to sleep. But like since I've been home, I have been like going to bed at like 9 o'clock every single night. Like, and I'm normally like a pretty up at like I'm normally up pretty late, like 1
Mhm.
a.m. Though I guess like in the weeks leading up to Worlds, I was doing pretty good about like going to bed at like a good normal adult time at like 11:30, 11, something like that. But yeah, I was going to bed at like 9 o'clock every night and then waking up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. back home. And I did that for like multiple days. I'm kind of more on a normal track now. And I think now that we're staying up late recording the podcast, I'll be like totally back to normal, hopefully, in the next couple days. But also, I've been like kind of sick the last couple days. You can probably hear it in my voice. I don't know if it's from Japan because I didn't start feeling sick until Sunday. And I got back from Japan on like Tuesday night. So I don't think it's from Japan. I also like took a COVID test. It's not COVID. I just like stuffed up and yeah, have not been feeling good the last like 3 days, to be honest. But We're
Big
vibing,
old
we're making it work, and we are here doing the podcast. I will say, as soon as we are done doing the podcast, I am uploading this thing and I'm going like right to bed as soon as possible. I'm gonna be so beat. But enough
Y
of all of those things. Before we get into our first topic, there are a couple of announcements that we wanted to make sure we got out there. Regionals registration is up and running. Pittsburgh has already come and gone. Barcelona come and gone very quick. Only 400 TCG master
Yeah.
spots for Barcelona Azul, a major tournament, and apparently a massive venue as well. I was seeing people post online that this venue can host like tens of thousands of people, like over 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's
That
just
seems
not
like
happening.
a
400 people for Masters TCG. What do you think of that?
It's like a pretty big oversight. In general, Europe was having that kind of we haven't had that problem in a while for North American regionals where it sells out in seconds. Like you have to be there, kind of like well, I guess for NAIC, but like North American regionals, we haven't had that
Yeah.
problem. NAIC was literally every wave was gone in seconds.
For North
Um,
American regionals, it has been gone like in less
30
than an hour,
minutes.
pretty
Yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah.
And then I think for Pittsburgh, it was gone within the first like 10 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, it was still gone pretty fast. I think it was 25 minutes, which is still pretty
Okay.
fast, of course. You'd like it to be
Yeah.
around ideally more than a day, but yeah, it went pretty fast. But I feel like 30 minutes is like anyone who is gonna, put forth the time and effort to be there right when registration opens, they'll all get in, right? Like I was still in Japan. I woke up at 7 a.m., I think, 8 a.m. I forget, I think 8 a.m. Woke up at 8 a.m. in Japan, registered, went back to bed. So like I was up 5 minutes before registration started, sitting on my computer, ready to go. It opened, I registered, went back to bed. So like if you were right there, at the on the minute that registration was happening, you got in there pretty consistently. But yeah, in Europe, it's like seconds, right? It's like 10 seconds. And then even then, it's like kind of a lottery based on when you refresh the page kind of thing. Because if there's just too many people trying to get in all at once, some people just get blocked out, right? And can't even get to the point where you click the register button, or when you click it, it just infinitely loads and then you weren't one of the people to get in, right? So yeah, Europe's had that problem all of last season. And this is a special event and the majority of special events only get like 100 people, but special events in Europe get 500 plus players
Yeah.
consistently. And that's actually why European special events, if you win specifically a European special event, you get your Worlds invite because they're pretty much recognized as major tournaments compared to the other special events. So, yeah, that feels like a really big oversight in general from the organizers in Europe where it's like obviously their regionals and special events, they're pushing for bigger numbers. Are they as big as North American numbers? We don't really know, but definitely bigger numbers than what they were getting last season. They could definitely push quite a bit past that, right? So really unfortunate to see the European players kind of getting, I guess, snubbed in that sense as far as attendance goes, especially with like their first event of the year so far already. Just 400 spots is just like not enough. That feels like a big oversight.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too, man. I think it's gonna be really hard to qualify for Worlds in Europe this year. I mean, 500 points, and they have way less tournaments than we do. So you have way less
Yeah,
opportunities. I think, like, as a European player, um, you're probably like needing to feel like good about getting your invite. You either need to like have like a really good tournament run right early on in the season, get a top eight, or obviously if you get a win at a regionals or big special event, you get your invite. But I mean, I feel like you should try to make a second IC work besides EUIC in order to get your invite.
yeah. Also, like cups and challenges are way less. I think there's
Yeah.
way less cups and challenges. Like they're just in general in their areas compared to North America. For the most part, is what I've heard that they have a lot harder time, getting to as many cups and challenges. Like in North America, there's like if you just live in like a decent area, there's so many cups and challenges you can go to.
And
I
then
do think it is
also,
possible that I think North America, I think are the 12 regionals that have been announced for North America is probably what we're gonna get. There might be a couple more to come, because there's definitely a couple key locations missing, like Salt Lake City, the Northeast, and then there was
Milwaukee,
no
Madison.
Madison. So there's like 3 locations that are generally have a regional that haven't been announced, which could be for North America, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just stick with the 12 we have. But I think for Europe, it's definitely possible they maybe get some more special events or regionals for sure, because yeah, they really don't have that many for how many points they really need for their invites, to be honest. Or maybe their points get lowered throughout the season. Who knows?
Yeah. I like we said a couple weeks ago, I think we both kind of just want Pokemon to like pick a number and stick to it, like find
Yeah,
a number that
yeah,
they feel good about and like not lower the bar and like make changes halfway through the season. Cause like when you're making changes halfway through the season, it just muddies everything up for everyone involved.
yeah. It feels really bad. So hopefully they don't do that. But hopefully it is still reasonable for majority of the people who are really going for their invite to be able to get it.
And
And then for
then
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and probably the same thing you were about to say, that if you're listening to the podcast the day it comes out, registration for Peoria regionals is actually happening tonight. I believe it was
Yep.
7 p.m., we should probably double check, but
Yeah. I think 8
don't want to
PM.
get put wrong information out there. Day two events over on Twitter. Make sure you check their tweets and stuff, but it is going to be 7 p.m. Central Time, so 8 p.m. Eastern Time for registration for Peoria, which is probably going to be a pretty big one. I don't know. It's kind of hard to gauge because like Peoria is like pretty
It's
annoying to
Midwest
get
still,
to for a
though.
lot of the country, but for a lot of the country, it's very easy to get to, right? So it's like
Yeah.
people who would normally fly are going to have a harder time getting to Peoria, but it's in a central-ish enough location where like anyone who's willing to do like the 10-hour drive, they're going to be able to make it out there.
Yeah, a ton of people are gonna be driving to Peoria. Yeah, and in the Midwest locations, there's a ton of people who end up driving to them, so I think it'll still be I think it'll probably sell out. Yeah, it might not be as quickly as Pittsburgh, but I think it'll still sell out. My guess would be within the first hour. I think well, I'm gonna go ahead and make I guess I'll make a guess. I'm gonna guess that it'll sell out in the first hour, registration for Peoria will.
Yeah, I think that's
And
probably
actually,
fair.
we could have, like, one of those situations kind of like where it felt like for the regionals post-COVID where things were selling out in, like, a minute or just, like, seconds sometimes it felt like, where, like, it's like, the times will get shorter and shorter just because of the what is, like, the word I'm looking for here? Like, the fear of not making registration will grow and grow within the community where
Yeah,
everyone will be there the second registration opens. More and more people will do that, and then everyone who's kind of unsure if they wanna go to that regional or not will also be there the second registration opens to register because they know if they don't do it then, they won't have a chance to. So, like,
yeah,
create a what is the word I'm looking for? A scare in the community, but it's not a scare. Is it a better word for it? But I can't think of it right now off the top of my
yeah.
head,
No, I know what you mean.
but
And then we still don't know the prize pool for regionals, which,
yeah,
what? I mean, today is the 22nd. This is coming out on the 23rd. The regionals is on the 9th. So we're
2 weeks,
like
3
2
weeks?
weeks away, 2.5 weeks away from this tournament, and we don't know what we're playing for.
Yeah.
So I
I think it's
really hope that announcement comes soon. I'm super hopeful that the prizing is going to increase because it would just feel so backwards to me if they announce the prizing now, like after not announcing it alongside all the other stuff. Like
it's
the
the
points
same.
stayed pretty much the same. If they like weren't keeping prizing the same and they're like waiting till now to announce it, that's just gonna feel like a slap in the face. I think everyone's getting their hopes up that it's gonna be different. So I just could not see a reason why if it was gonna be the same, it wasn't announced already.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be an increase at this point. Like, the fact that they didn't announce it immediately, I think definitely suggests that it's going to be a increase in pricing. I think they even said, um, that the all of the information for this season basically is gonna be announced before the first regionals, right? They said between Worlds and the first regionals, pretty much everything is supposed to be announced, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna try to find that post on the Pokemon website. But yeah, they said they did make a statement in their like big post where they announced a bunch of the information. They did say like, but after Worlds, a lot more information was going to be released. So
Yeah, after Worlds before the first regional of the season.
yeah,
So,
so
we got 2.5 weeks
hopefully
to
that
give
doesn't
us something.
involve like Thursday before the regionals. Like hopefully that's maybe Monday this coming week, or maybe it's tomorrow. Maybe this comes out at like noon or 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, like first thing in the morning West Coast time. And then we look silly, for complaining about it because the information came out, but we just don't know because we're in the past right now, and that's in the future.
And hopefully it's everything major, like the prize pool for they haven't given us prize pool for ICs either, right? So prize pool for
No,
regionals and ICs, IC
or
dates and
worlds.
locations. Um, I guess prize pool for worlds as well. Like prize pool for worlds is a little bit less important, I feel like, but ICs, regionals, and then IC dates and locations would be good if we got all that information in this announcement. That they announced will happen before the first regional.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that covers all that talk. We can move on to worlds results, and I think we'll start off by just kind of talking about. We should start off by talking about. Is it both our first times in Japan,
Yeah.
right? First time in Japan. So how'd you like Japan?
Japan was awesome. It was very hot.
Nice.
The weather, it was probably the worst time of year to go, just temperature-wise. You walked outside and it just felt disgusting. I don't think it was any worse than, like, middle of the summer Florida weather,
Yeah.
to be
I think
honest,
Florida's
but
still worse, actually.
it was still pretty bad regardless.
Yeah.
Also, our hotel was, like, a good 10-minute walk away from the venue, but at least, like, the way you could walk in Japan, there's just all these, like, malls and stuff like that, it's, like, indoor walking for most of the way. I don't know. I had a great time in Japan. The food was awesome. The culture is so unique compared to, the rest of the world, and the people were super friendly. Was able to get around pretty easily without speaking any Japanese. I knew how to say "arigato gozaimasu," and that is just about it. And was still able to maneuver around and get to where I needed to go. The one thing that was kind of a bummer for me is that for me it was pretty much just a work trip. I got in Wednesday, we had rehearsal Thursday afternoon, so, like, Thursday morning, I went out, with a few of the other casters, and we went to, like, this shopping mall area in Yokohama, walked around a little bit, um, and then I got to go do a few things Monday afternoon with you,
Yeah.
and that was, like, pretty much it, and then, like, went to the Pokemon Center Tuesday morning at the Skytree, and that's it. So I feel like I missed out on, like, being a real tourist in Japan. I pretty much only got, like, a day-ish worth, but it was, like, a day broken up into, like, 3 segments. So, it was definitely that's the one thing is I just wish I would have been there longer, like, had more time to be able to be a tourist, and it wasn't as much like because starting Thursday afternoon when we had rehearsal and then for all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, we're working.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get to do as much stuff as I would've liked either, I don't think,
Bro,
but
you
I
were there
didn't really,
for a
like.
week.
Yeah, but I didn't have, like, any plans ahead of time for a ton of stuff. We still got out and did some stuff. So we, like, where my Airbnb was afterwards, we were right by, like, this temple, which is pretty cool, and got to kind of, go to, like, Akihabara, whatever that place is called, and then some other, like, stuff in Tokyo, went to, like, Shibuya and what the other ones called that starts with, like, a J. But it'd been cool to, like, I saw a lot of pictures of a lot of people, like, going outside of, the Tokyo kind of
Yeah.
area, which looked pretty cool. Didn't have any opportunity to do any of that, so it's something I definitely would wanna do, the next time I go to Japan, and probably, get outside of, like, the main city areas and go to, like, more of the stuff outside of that. The food was good, but it definitely made me appreciate the diversity and quality of food in America in comparison, because the food in Japan by the end of, like, towards the end of the second week got pretty repetitive. Like, it's not they don't have a ton of variety of, like, a high quality, for sure. So, the food in Japan definitely got pretty repetitive towards the end. There's not that much diversity in it, to be honest. So, that definitely made me appreciate, America in that terms for sure.
Did you go
But,
back to that Indian place we ate at on Monday afternoon? Because that place was super good.
no, I didn't. Yeah, and that was your first time having Indian food,
Yeah, I
right?
never had really had Indian food before, and I had it for the first time really in Japan, and it was so good. I've, like, thought about that meal since I've come back home, like, it was so good, man.
No, yeah, I didn't get a chance to go back to that place, but yeah, I had a bunch of different, like, steak places, sushi places, chicken katsu, stuff like that. So yeah, I tried out a bunch of different foods while I was there. Um, Definitely enjoyed most of it. It's all pretty good. But yeah, it was a good time overall. Definitely want to go back and, like I said, try and do some more of those things. Try and get out a little bit more of just kind of the Tokyo area and go see some of those cooler locations for sure. But it was a good time overall. Definitely enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a little bit hot. I definitely want to come. If I go back, I want to come back fall, winter, springtime. One of those where it's like not such a
Yeah.
drag, and like can you really walk around and explore without feeling quite as miserable with the heat and not kind of longing to get back into the AC.
Do you have a, favorite souvenir that you got while you're over there? Did you get a lot of, like, souvenirs and, like, mementos or whatever to bring back home?
Not really. So I guess I'll just go with my trophy on that one.
It's a pretty good souvenir.
Yeah. What about
I
you?
th
What'd you
I
pick
th
up?
I think my favorite souvenir I got was the Palmy plush that I won at the Crane game in Akihabara
Oh, yeah.
after putting in quite a bit of yen to, to
You were
get it.
committed.
It got to the point where basically the crane machine got it went into payout mode because it had received enough money. It was like, okay, we can give this guy his little plush. So
Oh, wait, did
it
it really
just
go that get that
yeah,
far?
yeah, that's why it like gripped onto it so hard the time I won it finally.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing in
It
crane
really
machines.
wasn't that bad. It was probably like 3,000 yen. So it was not that bad.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like, 20 something dollars,
Yeah,
$21,
yeah.
something like that. So it's not that bad.
You were definitely committed to
I came home and gave
getting
it to
it.
Samuel too. He loves it.
Um, yeah, speaking of the heat, I guess we could talk a little bit about the the check-in line, which I think is a little bit notorious post event or during the event. A lot of people were tweeting out pictures of it and stuff. So the one thing I will say, or I'll start off with this and say, I showed up to check in. Check in was supposed to go from 5 to 8 p.m. I showed up to check in at like 7:45. I was done checking in about 8:30. So for me, the check-in experience was fine. So the line that a lot of people were waiting in for hours, like 3 or 4 hours, I think were some of the longest times I saw people waiting in, was created by the people getting in line, if you know what I'm saying. The line didn't need to exist as big as it was. Now, the argument for getting in the line as early as possible is that you wanted to get to the Pokemon Center and be one of the first people into the Pokemon Center, right? So I think that's like
Mhm,
the only reason to have gotten in line early. The line itself was like uh is like should not exist to the extent it did unless you want to make the argument that you're just trying to get to the Pokemon Center. But what's kind of funny about that is when I got to check in finally, the Pokemon Center had closed, which was fine because they gave everyone who hadn't gotten into the Pokemon Center yet a wristband, and then at any point throughout the rest of the tournament, you could just show up with your wristband, and they'd cut your wristband off, and you could go into the Pokemon Center literally whenever you wanted. You didn't have to wait in the line. You could skip all the lines if you're a competitor with a wristband. You just got to go in. You could
mhm.
bring up to 3 friends, I think. So my whole experience of check-in and then getting to the Pokemon Center was like fine. I had like no problems. So I think that's like the only thing that kind of sucked, and it would have been better if they had just given competitors the wristband to begin with and just been like, go to the Pokemon Center whenever you want throughout the weekend. You could go once, and that would have been a better way to solve it. Because then the check-in line wouldn't need to be so ridiculously long. Because that's the only reason I can think of why anyone would wait in the check-in line at that point. Obviously, you need
Well,
someone to show up for check-in initially to
yeah,
begin with, right? But like
if
once a line
everyone
is
waits
like,
till 7:45, then the line looks
yeah,
like this at 7:45, you know?
yeah, of course. But like if like you go to check in at 5 and there's like a decent line there, just to be like, all right, I'll come back in a couple hours, right? Like, or if the line's already pretty moved along, you're like, okay, I'll get in line right now then, right? But I think
Yeah.
it's like the line was fake. Like the line was created like I don't even know how to explain what I'm trying to say. Basically, I don't know why anyone would go into a line that big once it reached a certain point. Just come back later. Like I don't understand why people let themselves get into a line and let it grow to that size. So I feel like the line wasn't actually an issue, or the amount of time people were waiting in line wasn't really an issue. It was kind of like a fake issue that was created by people getting in line and committing to being in line for 3 to 4 hours, which it kind of hurts my head to think about. Like, just don't go in line. Just wait for later. At a certain point, you should just come back later, you know?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's gotta check in at some point, right? And there's really no
Yeah.
super great way to get, like, this many people through the line, right? Because I mean, you've got everyone for all 4 games, and you've got all the spectators as well.
Yeah.
You've got parents of younger division players, like, I mean, it's a lot of people making it through these lines. So, I mean, there's really just it's pretty much there's always gonna be a wait, like, no
Yeah, of
matter what system
course.
they do. Um,
But I think just,
but
like I think the line is, like I don't even know how to explain what I'm saying, but basically, like, once a line got to a certain point, people should just stop getting in line and be like, "Okay, I'll come back
yeah.
in, like, an hour, 45 minutes," right? And I think it still would have gone at about the reasonably the same pace. Like I said, I showed up at 7:45. Yeah, I still had to wait a decent amount, I didn't get out until 8:30, but, like, I feel like people didn't need to commit to sitting there for 4 hours. Just come back later. I don't think it was like I said, the only reason that you could theoretically, like, put forth to be like, "Well, I wanna get in the line sooner so I can get to the Pokemon Center and, potentially get some of this stuff before it runs out." That's, I guess, reasonable, and like I said, the solution to that, I think Pokemon should have applied the whole time would just be like, once you check in, you just get a wristband that you can come back to the Pokemon Center anytime you want throughout the whole tournament weekend, and,
Yeah, but
use
does
your
that not just
wristband.
equal people, like, going in immediately after getting their thing anyway, so it's, like, basically the same thing? Like,
Yeah, but you could just come back tomorrow morning or the morning after. Like, there's, like,
yeah,
so
you at
much
least
like I
have the
said.
option to come back, I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I said, I didn't have to compete in day 1, so I came back the morning of the day 1 competition. I just walked right through, went in. But for anyone who was competing in day 1 who didn't make day 2, they could just go right through in day 2, right? Or even if make it all the way from day 1 to day 2, play in day 2, come back Sunday, Sunday morning, boom, go through. You're all good to go, right? So, like, I don't know. I think that would have been a good solution. It would just be give competitors wristbands that they get to use once throughout the tournament at some point. Um, but it was really long. And to be honest though, if you compare this to like London, this was just like not a big problem at London at all. Even at NAIC, I don't think I remember this being a problem at all either. But there was way more people trying to check in at Worlds than I think either of those events. So
Well, I think
that
it was
definitely has
probably
something to do with it.
amplified by the heat, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
of course.
if there's a big long line to wait to check in and you're inside the whole time, people aren't gonna love it, obviously, but I don't think you see it nearly as many posts as we saw. I think, like, the heat really amplified the situation beyond uh, what you would have thought, I guess. Or what you would expect just based on, like, this many people needing to get through. Because I mean, it was gross out, it's really hot, it feels terrible, and, it feels I can't imagine having stood outside. The longest I was outside while I was in Japan was probably for, like, 20, 30 minutes. I can't imagine being outside for, like, 4 hours, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like the people who complain about having to go to all these tournaments, compete for the top 16 race. It's like you don't have to compete for the top 16 race to get a day 2 invite. You don't have to stand out of line as outside in the line for 3 hours in the heat. You can just once the line goes outside the convention center, just be like, okay, I'm gonna come back later. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That's just kind of how I view that. So I think it's like a problem that wasn't really a problem until the players created the problem. Like the problem
Yeah.
didn't need to exist. Like it was a self-created problem by people getting into the line for no reason. So
And I will say
um
as well, they said check-in was gonna be from 5 to 8. They were done by, like, 8:45, right?
that's what I'm saying,
Like,
like, they weren't far off. Like I said, like, I was at the end of the for pretty much almost the end of the line when I came in at 7:45, and I was out by 8:30, so they were pretty close to their mark. Obviously could have been a little bit smoother, but everything
what
always
about
can.
in the venue? I know, like, leading up to it, you were pretty worried about being in the venue, like, the temperature inside. I was worried about it too. Luckily, they told us as casters we did not have to wear suits if we didn't want to. We could wear short sleeves and button downs and all that stuff, or roll the sleeves up. So that's what I did for day 1, day 2. Did put the coat on for the finals, spiff it up just a little bit, but uh, I gotta say it was pretty nice and like it kind of helped the vibes. I feel like just casting in like a button down, and I don't know. I think Kyle and I had a really good time with it, but yeah, for you out in the hall, it felt overall not as bad as I thought it was going to. Like, I think if I did have to wear a suit, I probably would have been fine. It would have been a little bit hotter, but um, how did it feel for you out in the play area?
It didn't feel too bad. Actually, honestly, I think the NAIC venue was hotter, than it was at Worlds. It wasn't great playing conditions, for either, but it was, like, fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was definitely hot in not, like, super hot, but it was definitely warm in there. So, yeah, I tried to get in and out as soon as possible, just show up, play, and then I was there for a while, of course, because I did make top 8, but I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible afterwards. I was hoping it was a ridiculously long day 2. Day 1 was really, really long as well. Day 1 was, like, 12 hours or something
It was
more.
a long day, yeah.
Day 2 was really, really long as well. Like 12 hours plus. Yeah, really, really long day 2 as well. It was, like, super long. And then we had to, like, wait super long to start top 4, um, because, we're waiting for the stream match, which was I forget it was Tord versus it was the Guard Vormir, I guess, or whatever on
Hmm.
stream. I think is what we were waiting for. I don't know. We had to wait, like, after top 8 was done, we had to wait super long to start top 4, and even once Tord's match was done, we were still waiting a while. So, yeah, it took a while to kinda get through everything, and I think that's the only reason that they didn't stream both top 4 matches because I think they usually do that. But they do it at IC, so I assume they want to do it at Worlds, but I think they didn't because we were running so late.
No, it was never on the schedule to stream both top fours.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It happens at ICs though, right?
sometimes it
Not all
happened
the
at
time?
Worlds last year. They streamed every single top 8 match last year at Worlds, but it was because
See, they had a
it
separate
was a
day, Top
separate
Cut had its
day.
own
Yeah, it
day,
was an
yeah.
extra day. So since we didn't have that, it was never on the schedule to stream both top fours, which I was kind of bummed out about.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay, I didn't know that. I just assumed
yeah.
because I see it feels like most of the time both top fours get streamed. I wish they would. I just wish Top Cut would be the day after. I just wish they would do Top Cut on Sunday. I understand that they're trying to do all the finals of everything on, in a row on one stream. But I think it would be, I don't know, just be better. I think a higher quality of like play
I
potentially
mean,
from the
I think
players as
it's
well.
reasonable
But
that we could have a system in the future that's like similar to what they did in London, right? Especially like now we're going to be having like a normal tournament structure for Worlds, most likely, right? Like 9 rounds Swiss day one into 6 rounds, 5 or 6 rounds day two. Um, I mean, I
then
don't think it's crazy that they would go like 9 rounds day one, 5, 6 rounds day two, and then all of the top 8 games on like
day,
Saturday, and then still
yeah,
save like just start the tournament a day earlier. Like I don't really think. I mean, they keep pushing the limit with worlds and stuff like that. The production value. We haven't even talked about that yet. The production value seemed super great for this worlds. Like the opening ceremony was so sick. Were you there for that?
it's part of it. Yeah, I didn't stay for all
Like
of it.
the Japanese like traditional drum line. It was super cool.
Yeah,
Um But yeah, they just keep like up in the game. I feel like we are not super far from a like week long worlds event. Yeah, like I feel like in the next five
that's a
years
lot.
we'll see like a week long Pokemon convention for worlds, something like that.
Yeah, I guess we probably wouldn't be playing all the days, but like having some
Right,
stuff
right.
earlier in the week to kick things off, and then build up towards the competition towards the end of the week. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool. Could definitely see it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's jump into talking about the tournament itself a little bit. Um, you got the metas pulled up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 day tournament. Obviously, day one, players needed to go 6-2 in order to make it to day two. So it was an 8 round tournament. You needed to get 6 wins or 5 wins and 3 ties to make it to day two, to compete for your chance at world champion title. And players can change decks from day one to day two, and then there's a bunch of players, obviously, as well, that automatically qualified for day two, like Azul. So I think the final number was 77 players made it from day one to day two, and then there was a total of 170 players in day two. So just under 100 players auto qualified for day two, and then 77 moving from day one into day two. And yeah, we do have the meta for day one and day two, and they were pretty different as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess the decks are the same, just kind of like in different orders, and some pretty big jumps in some of these places. And I think what is probably a surprise for a lot of people would be to see Lugia being the number one most played deck day one. I wouldn't have personally predicted this,
Yeah.
but the more I've thought about it, I mean, it makes sense, right? If you played Lugia most of the year, you get to the world championships, why don't you ride with the deck that you played for most of the season, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Lugia felt like such a, but I don't even know because even if you look at NAIC, like Lugia was not. I mean, it was on the graphic, I think, for, and this world graphics also cuts off. Usually, there's 5 decks. It shows or 6 decks, right? It doesn't usually
Yeah.
show 6 decks. So we're missing a deck. I'm not sure what deck number 6 is, but I don't know.
It was number 6 was Chien Pao and number 7 was Mew.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And it was
Yeah,
like they were super close to Arceus Tina. It was like
9 and 8.
Arctina was 67 players on the deck. I don't remember it exactly, but I think Chien Pao was like 63 and Mew was like 62. Mew was like
Okay.
one less than Chien Pao.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Lugia being the most popular deck definitely surprised me. I did not expect that. So that was definitely a big surprise. I don't know how it did in conversion from day 1 to day 2, but obviously it fell off a little bit in day 2, but actually not by too much as far as, like, percentage of the meta goes. But then Guardy was still towards the top, Lost Tina being towards the top. There was more, like, Lost Box than I thought there would be, and then Arceus,
Yeah.
Tina being up there as well wasn't, like, too big of a surprise. But yeah, really just, like, Lugia being that popular. And then also there being like I expected Lost Tina to be popular, but then there also being that much Lost Box as well as Lost Tina was actually a surprise to me, personally for sure.
Yeah, making up 30% of the meta if you combine those two archetypes. And then Mew
Yeah.
VMAX jumping from seventh most popular day one all the way up to second most popular in day two. And we'll talk about the tournament results and everything. I mean, obviously, Mew did end up winning the tournament. It's also the deck that you ended up playing for the tournament. You haven't played Mew pretty much at all this season. You played it a little bit last season, but
Yeah.
why do you think like Mew? Because obviously it wasn't just your group that decided Mew was a good play for day two of Worlds. What do you think led to it being such a popular deck in day two compared to day one?
Well, I think there was a decent amount of it that got through from day 1 to day 2. Like, I think Xander
Hmm.
and Sam Chen, both stuck with they got through with from day 1 to day 2 with Mew, and I think they both played Mew in day 2. I know Xander did for sure. Daichi actually played Mew day 1, but switched it up to Lugia in day
Yep.
2. I don't know, like, for my group specifically, it was just doing the best out of everything the Fusion Mew was, so we kinda stuck with it. Um, and I guess, like, yeah, a lot of people other people came to that kinda same conclusion. We were in, uh we were at Worlds and is international competition, and generally, Mew does very well and is a lot more popular at tournaments in Asia in general. So, that I think is part of it as well, right? Just, like,
Hmm.
there's just gonna be like, if you just take Europe or you just take North America, I don't think Mew's gonna be as successful or as popular or not as popular, so therefore not as successful. But then when you add all the other regions in, or even just Asia specifically, I should say, I think that definitely just is gonna boost Mew's popularity for sure. And then even though like a lot of the success for the deck came from Vance winning, I made top eight. There still was Lee in top eight as well from
Singapore.
uh, Singapore. Yeah. So, but I think the
Yeah.
popularity in general is just boosted for that from because of that. Just like generally a little bit more popular of a deck in Asia in general. So, more of the players from Asia played it. So
Yeah, I
yeah, I
mean,
think
and
that's
the
it.
people who had done well with it throughout the year played it. Like Dion Lee, who got
Yeah.
top eight, who you played against in
Yeah.
top eight. He was the Singapore national champion. He was one of
Yeah.
the people who won an Asian tournament with Mew VMAX. And Nachi as well, the player who won the Japan championships, the like national championships for Japan, won it with Mew, played Mew again in day two of Worlds. So these players who did well with it throughout the year in Asia stuck with it for the world championships as well, which is really not something anyone I think should be surprised at.
And both those players had like day two invites as well, right? I would assume
Yeah,
Dion
yeah,
did, and yeah, so did Nachi. So yeah, they just make it through to day two, and then yeah, if they've been running it, they're running it again. And the way the meta kind of shifted up for it, I think it did actually end up being like pretty good for it. Like the Guardian matchup was fine. Lost Box is kind of sketch, but I don't think Lost Box was like a particularly great play, especially with how popular Lugia actually ended up being. I think that hurt Lost Box a lot.
yeah,
And then I think Lost Tina is favorable for Mew,
yeah.
even if they have the Spiritomb. So yeah, even with them having the Spiritomb, I still think you're favored as Mew.
Yeah, that
And a
was the
lot of
matchup you
people,
guys tested the most, right? Was Lost Box or was Lost Tina with Spiritomb versus Mew, and you were still coming out favored, right?
yeah. Although I think the matchup we tested the most was guard for, but
Oh,
um,
okay, okay.
second was probably Tina. And yeah, it was coming out overall on top against Tina, even if they had the Spiritomb. But like it basically seemed pretty close to 50-50, but I think still like favored overall for Mew. Because Tina can be like a pretty clunky deck, where Mew is like a pretty consistent deck to be. Like I think I literally attacked turn one every single game I went second at the tournament. I don't think I missed a turn one attack. I attacked with something turn one every single time.
That's pretty
So
sick.
yeah, he's definitely fairly consistent for sure in that regard as far as that goes. So um,
Well, let's get into the tournament results. And we've already hinted at it, talked about Mew a little bit. Vance Kelly did end up getting the win with the Mew VMAX, taking down toward Reklev in the finals, toward playing Gardevoir. Overall, super exciting finals match. Yeah, and it was really close as well. It ended up Vance winning in turns of time due to the
yeah,
like single elimination rules. It's hard to know for sure, if that game plays out naturally, like who necessarily comes out on top. Toward prized like double Ralts in that game, but wasn't able to go for the Mirage step Curly in that game because they were in time. He was pressured to start attacking. So
yeah.
um but yeah,
Also
Mew
had like a really
VMAX
awkward
gets the
bench.
win. Vance did have a few cards different from you guys. So yeah, well, I guess why don't we start by just talking about Vance's list? Congratulations, first off, as well to Vance on getting the win. You did get that prediction correct, a North American player winning Worlds. I predicted Mew VMAX would win, so we split that one 50-50. We'll get into our predictions more a little bit later, but yeah, there is the world champion winning list.
Yeah. So I guess like to talk about like the biggest standout card I guess here is like probably Box of Disasters because there's Crystal Cave in here as well, which you don't see a whole ton, but that one's pretty straightforward. It's just for kind of the Lost Box matchup to reduce like the outs from Sableye and Greninja for taking knockouts.
Yeah,
But then the Box of Disasters is kind of cool. Like it's good in the Guardian matchup. You know, if they get the one hit KO, they get knocked out back, which usually just sets you ahead on tempo like every single time. We actually even saw that Tor did play the Lost Vacuum in his Guardy build. So came prepared for Panic Mask and Box of Disaster, like the cheesy cards, right? Still an out to path as well.
yeah.
It's gonna be
I
good
think that's
there.
more the reason for it. The fact that he like off of an Iono could use Mew to dig for a path
Yeah.
bump. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of more the reason, but it just kind of also like is naturally good against some of the cheesy stuff Panic Mask and Box of Disaster.
Yeah. And then I guess the other card that kind of stands out as well is like the Oricorio, which we hadn't been seeing a ton of lately. The Ice Cube was kind of the other Pokemon people were including. That's what I played as well over the Oricorio. The Oricorio is pretty good against Gardevoir because then they can't go turn two Candy, Guardy, KO a two prizer. And then also it's like decent in mirror as well because it forces the extra modifier out from your opponent to get the 1K on the Mew V Max. So it has some decent uses in both those scenarios. Um, and I think we saw that's what Xander and Sam played as well. They were both playing the Oricorio
Yeah,
as well. I really like the ICU though. I don't know. You could play all three, I guess, but that probably gets a little bit too clunky. But I use the ICU a lot. I did play against a lot of Spiritombs in my run. I think I played against 4 Spiritombs total. So I was using the ICU a lot
yeah,
throughout my run, and that's definitely something we found we are doing a lot in testing as well up against Lost Tina was using ICU to snipe Spiritomb. So um, I think the Auricario definitely has its value for sure. So it's not like one is definitely uh, always better than the other. There definitely is value out of both. But we're moving forward to a new meta, so who knows how good Mew even is.
right.
Um, maybe you
And
should be
then we've
picking.
got
You want to be picking between them. Go
yeah,
ahead.
we've got towards Guardy list, which had some pretty unique cards. We hinted at a couple of them already. Kind of the big standout one, I think, is the Mirage Step Curlia. This is a card that people played early on in their Gardevoir lists, but as the meta kind of moved on, people kind of came to the conclusion that just like having the heavy refinement was overall better. But Tord decided that Mirage Step would be good for this tournament. And yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of his games, and it was not uncommon to see him just go turn two Mirage Step, have a Ralts in play, and then like on the next turn, he's got all these Curlias, he's got Rare Candy into a Gardevoir, and he still keeps that extra draw power in play, which is super strong.
Yeah, so let's see, like set up like a more powerful board state, I guess, at the expense of not getting like a knockout or any kind of pressure for the turn two candy play.
Yeah,
Um, and I think it's specifically really good against Mew, or just kind of decks with Lost City in general. Then you just open up more outs to draw power. And then, like you said, yeah, your Curlias can stay in play as Curlias, and then you can candy your extra Ralts into Gardevoirs, which keeps your Curlias around, which keeps your draw power in play. And overall gives you like more options as the game kind of progresses. So yeah, I think the Mirage shape is pretty cool. I don't know if it's like the best way to play it, but it also lets you recover from really slow starts as well, right? Like if
sure.
you open just like a one Ralts or two Ralts, it's not just kind of like you kind of like slowly sit there while your opponent like bosses your Curlias and Ralts over and over again, and you kind of slowly bleed out and never being able to set up a really strong board. It does put you like a turn behind. Like say, you're not going to get the Candy Gardevoir, but if you're, it's really hard to get Candy Gardevoir off anyways. Or how much is that actually going to matter if you only have one Ralts out to begin with? So if you just make that one Ralt into a Mirage Step Curlia, then maybe bench another Ralts, now all of a sudden you get like 2 or 3 Curlias on the board with Mirage Step. You have a Ralts on the board as well, and you'll be able to kind of set up a little bit better on your following turns from there. So it's like a good safety net, I feel like, for slow starts. And then specifically, you can kind of play around, play your board state around using it, especially if you're up against like some kind of like Lost City deck. That way, you have more outs into your guard wars while keeping your draw power around as like a game progresses. So, and they got the double reversal in there as well
Yeah.
to get those big strong hits with the brainwave Gardevoir. So yeah, pretty unique list, I guess I would say, from Tord as far as Gardevoir goes, right? Like I don't think we saw anyone kind of running anything like this. Also had the Luminion in the Forest Seal Stone. So the consistency from Luminion with the Ultra Ball combo, then got the Force Seal Stone in there to combo with the Zacian or Luminion, depending on what you have in play at the moment. So definitely a build that is like okay with going behind with the double reversal energy. Um, yeah, I would say definitely like a unique build overall, right? I don't think we've seen anything like this quite yet.
No, yeah, definitely a pretty unique one. I mean, he also had a few omissions from cards that he's normally played in this deck. Like when he's been playing Luminion, he normally has some of these like tech supporters, like the Worker in the deck. He doesn't have Worker, maybe in lieu of that Lost
Yeah,
Vacuum. Uh, one less Stadium than maybe you're used to seeing, just one Artisan, one Collapsed. Um, and yeah,
yeah, you
has
get the
that
vacuum.
Forest Sealstone. He played Sky Sealstone initially, but that people got off the Sky Sealstone pretty quickly after EUIC.
I was
Um,
actually surprised to see no Temple of Sinnoh in there with how popular Lugia was, because I feel like that's really the card that sets you
yeah.
ahead against Lugia. I think it's not too hard for Lugia to get ahead and then kind of stay ahead if they play, 2 to 3 one prize Pokemon. Like they set up the first Lugia V Star. If they get 2 prize cards off it and just go into 1 prize just for the rest of the game, you can't really ever recover in the prize trade. And your way to come back into it is like Iono plus Temple. So with how popular Lugia was day one, I was surprised to see Tord not rocking the Sinnoh, but looks like it didn't matter in the end.
And then we got a familiar face, a familiar name up here in the top four. Azul GG. Congratulations once again, buddy, on getting top four here at Worlds. Definitely, I would say. I mean, I don't know. How does this rank for you? I mean, you've won two ICs, you got top four at Worlds. Obviously, the wins are pretty big, but Worlds is kind of the one everyone remembers, right? Where does this rank for you as far as your accomplishments in the game?
I mean, I guess it's probably number 1, right? Top 4 at Worlds. If it was just a top 8, maybe I wouldn't put it up there, but I got the top 4, so I felt pretty good. Yeah, so I'd probably rank it as my number 1 accomplishment for sure.
With the Mew VMAX, we already talked about your list a bit.
Yeah.
You want to give us any highlights from your tournament run? You played what, 8 rounds of Swiss and then into top eight, top four. You want to give us any highlights of things that happened throughout your run?
I'm trying to think about like what happened in my run. I mean, I
You were
beat a
on
couple.
stream in round three against Sagen,
Yeah, round 3
which is
against
pretty
Agent
cool.
was I kind of knew we'd probably be on stream as soon as like I saw us up against Agent. I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna be on stream because I didn't
Yeah,
think Agent had been on stream up to that point. So I was like, all right, me and Agent are probably on stream. We went on stream. Yeah, game one was not super close. Like the matchup is definitely favored for me overall. And I kind of got everything I needed game one and just kind of got ahead, stayed ahead. Pretty easy to do when Agent doesn't play the Paths of the Peak. And then game two was funny. I had like a sleeve issue at the beginning of game two because my deck got caught on the little tape that's on the table to kind of designate where you're supposed to put your stuff so that way the stream can see everything on your board. And I like my deck got caught on the bottom of it. And I realized that when I tried to pull my deck off it and it snagged on it, that I marked my bottom sleeve. So I was like, hey, I marked my sleeve. It took forever to get my sleeve done because I thought I had brought a sleeve with me, my extra sleeves with me, but I apparently had forgot them in the hotel. And then
rookie mistake.
the first two times they brought me an extra sleeve. The first time they brought me a blue Ultra Pro, and I was like, well, my neck's purple, or my sleeves are purple, so I need a purple sleeve out of my bag. And then they brought me a purple Ultra Pro, which is not a purple Dragon Shield. So I was like, well, what about getting the purple Dragon Shield from my bag? And they brought me my bag, and I didn't actually have my purple Dragon Shields with me. So I had to re-sleeve my whole deck, and then I effectively donked Sajin in game two, which was like pretty funny.
Yep.
Even backstage when I was re-sleeving, I was like, this would be unfortunate if we do this whole 20-minute break just for me to go out there and donk him in game two.
Yeah, really appreciate all that, by the way,
Yeah.
as the person who was casting that round. Having to fill 20 minutes of a sleeve issue was a lot of fun. A lot of
Might have
fun.
been better though, because then we didn't. If we had gone through like a long game two and three, then we wouldn't have held up the tournament by 20 minutes. So maybe it was the better of
Yeah.
the outcomes there, to be honest. But I think the highlight, honestly, like the moment I remember most is when I was 6-1, and there was a possibility that there was going to be three 6-1s. So the moment I remember most is when Raz tied the round instead of winning. And then that guaranteed I would play against Tord, and then me and Tord ID'd to both guarantee us both into cut. So
Yeah.
that's the moment that stands out to me the most was hoping Raz would tie their round so I could ID with Tord and in round eight.
Yeah, and it gets you into top eight. You get the win in top eight over Dion Lee, and you do lose in top four to Vance. It was a crazy game. I really do wish that one had been streamed.
Yeah.
Um, you went second game three. It was a 3 game set. You went second game three and got the turn one attack, and and got a turn one knockout on a 2 prize Pokemon. And usually, if you do that as the Mew VMAX player in the mirror match, you're just like set to win, right?
It's pretty tough still. There's like a lot of things that can go wrong still. Um, because there's like the comeback of the Iono path now, which wasn't really there before. Um,
I don't know, man. I think you're pretty favored if you just go second and get the turn one Melodious Echo. I mean, that's pretty good to me for 2 prizes,
a good
because then
start.
you just have to take 2 knockouts, right? But, you got pretty unlucky. I was sitting there watching it the whole time. There was a pretty decent crowd of people watching as well, but I remember, and I'm sure you do too, this turn where you, like, it was turn 2 of the game. All you needed to do was boss's orders, KO a Genesect
Genesect to
to,
keep
like,
my
keep up with the prize race, right? Because he
mhm,
responded, KO'd your Meloetta, I think. I don't remember exactly
yeah,
what he KO'd. I think it was Meloetta. Um,
yeah, Meloetta.
and all you needed was off of a Genesect for 6 and then a Genesect for 3. You committed to the boss play before your Genesect because it's so high odds that
Yeah.
you were gonna draw the 1 damage modifier. You had 2 choice belts and 4 power tablets in the deck. You drew 9 cards effectively, and I think flipped the tails on a Cream-O-Matic in there as well
Yeah, I think so.
that led to you missing the KO,
Yeah.
which was like in that moment, did it just feel deflating? Or did you
A
feel like you
little
could still
bit.
get back in?
Well, I knew there was still a chance I could still win at that point. It definitely felt like it was kind of out of reach at that point when I whiffed the modifier.
Yeah.
Um, but I still wasn't based on what was left in my deck. I actually still wasn't in that good of a spot to. 'Cause I had to burn so many of my stadium bump cards, and I had to burn my Forest Sealstone,
Yeah.
which was kind of like the problem in all the games. Like I had to use Forest Sealstone like almost instantly in every single game, and I think the first 2 games I don't even remember Vance using their Forest Sealstone.
I don't
I don't
think
think
he
he even
did,
used it.
yeah.
Yeah, and then game 3 he used it at the end of the game to win the game. Um, so I had to burn my Forest Sealstone at some point in there, and then I had to um and then I whiffed the modifier. And at that point, it was like I only had like 1 out to path left. So even if I had gotten the knockout there, if I got Iono'd, I was still in a pretty tough spot to be honest. Because I drew into so many of my vacuums in Lost Cities so early, and I
Yeah.
had to like use some of them to be able to continue to draw cards with Genesect so I could actually keep up the trade. That it definitely even if I had gotten the knockout on that Genesect, it was still going to be pretty close from there because I was down so many path outs.
So you whiffed that knockout, but then the next turn you were able to take a knockout on a Mew VMAX by finding all 4 of your power tablets.
Yep.
Um, so you guys were at like he had took 2 prizes that turn, I think, right? Then so he was at 3 prizes. You took this 3 prize KO. So you go down to 2 prizes. And then also like on this turn, this is turn 3 of the game, by the way. You guys are both like
Yeah.
absolutely flying through your decks. Uh, you play all 4 power tablets plus Iono and Path, right? To
Yeah.
put him down to just 3 cards plus his draw for turn or whatever, and you knock out his VMAX. And so he has effectively 1 turn because you only have 1 prize left. You can KO anything to win the game. He has 1 turn to try to win the game pretty much, knock out your Mew VMAX, or, reverse Uno card you and Iono Path you. But
Yeah.
uh he gets all 4 power tablets in response to your 4 power tablets. Super wild game. 3 turns for both players, and the game ends. I mean, that's just kind of what can happen with the Mew Mirror match, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's basically the Mimir for sure. I feel like it's the that's how it goes like every single time. Um, but yeah, yeah, the games kind of went out like it wasn't anything too extreme. Um, the Oricorio, like I said, the Oricorio did end up mattering in that second game
Yeah.
'cause I wasn't able to get that modifier for the KO. But like, yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate. Like within all my modifiers at that point, it's just unfortunate no matter what. So it's like, yeah, I'm not too mad or anything about the game. I think I played pretty well overall. There's probably a couple of different things I could have done in there, of course, always, but it is what it is at the end of the day. It was cool to see Vance win for sure, though. See North America or America get the dub in the end.
Yep. So congrats to Vance on the win. And we talked about, so there was 3 Mew VMAX in top 8.
Yep.
You, Vance, and then Dion, who you played in top 8. And
Hmm.
then we've also got a couple of lost Tina in here, including Michael Pramawat, who got top 4 alongside you. He did lose to Tord on stream, but got top 4 with the lost Tina. A
There was
deck
two. I
that,
didn't even know there was two lost Cena in top 8.
bro, you were in top 8 of this tournament.
Yeah. Who did Pang lose to? Tord? No.
No, Peng
Oh,
lost to Vance.
Vance. Vance. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even honestly. I did not know there was two. Oh, and Pang played the Temple of Sinnoh, so you can go like no, no, yeah, you can go the Spirit Tomb Temple of Sinnoh combo plus Iono or Roxanne,
Mm.
which is a little bit more effective in the late game than the path play because wait, am I like tripping? No, that doesn't make sense because it shuts off the fusion energy, right?
Yeah, if you go Spiritomb plus Temple, yeah, I don't know at the
Yeah, yeah,
end.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or
Okay.
Roxanne.
Yeah,
But yeah, Vayne's
I
able to still win that one.
I did not realize there were 2 I'm not gonna lie, I did not I also just figured out the other day that I just, like I knew it in the moment when I was playing yesterday or the day before. I didn't remember that there was 2 Gardevoir in top 8 either. But, yeah, Tord played the Guardian Mirror in top 8.
Yep.
That's why we were waiting so long for top 4 to start because 'cause they're waiting on the stream match.
Then we got Soichi Saito with a Lost Box
Mhm.
list as well. The Kyogre getting it into top 8 of Worlds, a deck you played for most of the season.
Yeah.
But you were not the one playing it here at the Worlds. Pretty interesting list here as well with the Pidgeot V and Dragonite as like the only 2 V Pokemon. No Drapion and no or I guess you don't see Drapion as much in the Kyogre builds, but
Raikou.
no Raikou is the kind of big thing here, which I don't know with Lost Box or sorry, with Lugia being as popular as it was day one, I would have probably wanted to keep Raikou in the deck, right?
I still have the Kyogre, so you still have a pretty solid out in that scenario, I guess, in the matchup. And maybe tried to make the prediction that, like, Lugia wouldn't be quite as, popular in day 2, and it wasn't well, it was pretty close though, right? It's only 2% different, I guess. It was went
Yeah,
from
it's pretty
15 to
close.
13. But maybe not as quite as successful. And I think actually with the double Roxanne, you still have, like, a decent shot. You have a decent shot. The matchup is tough no matter what, to be honest. With Kyogre, without Kyogre, Lugia is definitely tough for Lost Box to beat. It's definitely a tough one. Um, so I don't hate the, idea of no Raikou, and then to put the Pidgeot in there, so you still get the power of the Forest Seal Stone without having the constant liability of a V Pokemon in play when it's
Mhm.
not as, good for you. And then I like the double Roxanne too. I like this list as in general a lot, to be honest. Double
No
Roxanne
Pokestop though has 2 Artisan.
and no Pokestop, so still have some stadium bumps, just increased consistency to find basically one through the Artisans instead. And then kind of use the Roxannes towards the late game as your kind of final way to push through to get off the Kyogre play. So I actually do kind of like the list overall, to be honest. The Roxanne, the double Roxanne specific guys, I'm a pretty big fan of. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I don't know how Lost Box in general is gonna shape up. We're going to that new format, of course, but
Mhm.
I do like the list for Worlds at least. Yeah. So now, oh, go ahead. I was gonna say
So
something.
yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, moving on, like looking at top 8, pretty narrow. 3 Mew, 2 Tina, 2 Guardy, 1 Lost Box, right? Kind of what we would expected.
Yeah.
But if you like kind of blow it out and look at the big picture of like top 32 worlds, there's a pretty decent amount of variety. We've got Baxcalibur, we've got Urshifu and Tellian, we've got Lugias that did well, and Cyrus's deck with the just like a Palkia Chimpao deck. And then also a couple Miraidon, Andrew Mahone and Sajin Park both getting top 32 with Miraidon. So
Yeah.
really kind of a diverse worlds meta, I feel like, when we look at the top 32 here.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah. And like Cyrus, the Poké deck I think is actually pretty strong. Probably not a deck that whole time people were looking at. Like Cyrus bubbled out of top 8, was
Yeah.
the only other person with the same points as 2 other players in top 8, so they bubbled out. And then Szymanski lost the win in into Pram, so there was almost an Urshifu deck in the
Yep.
top 8 as well. And I
And
generally think that's
Sajin,
a
if Sajin beat Cyrus, Sajin's resistance was better than Cyrus's. So Sajin would have been in top 8
oh really? I didn't
with
even know that.
Miraidon. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it's close as well. I have a feeling that I I would assume that's probably favorable for Sagen as well.
Yeah.
Miraida, I didn't even think of yeah, I didn't know that. I actually didn't know that matchup
Ultimately,
at the
it's
end
probably
there.
just like a 2 hit KO or a 1 hit KO war, right? Like
Yeah,
if Cyrus
probably,
goes
right?
first and Sajin like whiffs or turn 1 attack,
Sagen can just, like, push a one prizer for a turn pretty easily,
yeah,
right?
but Cyrus plays 4 cross switcher, right?
True, true. So I guess just going first is gonna be a big deal, right? But I guess
Yeah.
it's a little bit harder for even if Sagen goes first, it's harder for Sagen to get, like, the turn 2 gust,
Yeah.
force up a 2 prizer. So I guess that you
Yeah.
probably do give the advantage to maybe you do yeah, I guess you do give the advantage to Cyrus in this matchup actually overall then. Yeah, I take it back.
I don't know. I mean, it feels probably just like 50-50 to be honest. Like just big Pokemon smacking each other for 1 hit KOs. Like I guess S- Cyrus's deck probably needs a little bit more to make everything happen, right? Whereas Sajin's deck, like, if you
Yeah,
just get a generator and a Miraidon,
you're
you're
doing
probably
something.
taking a knockout turn 1.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know where like the rest of the, like the Chien Pao and the Lugia up there. I don't know if they were close to if they won into top 16 or lost the win ins to top 8. I'm actually not sure how everyone fell up at the top end. But
Sure.
yeah, there was definitely I mean there's a lot of decks. Um I mean, I personally wouldn't rate some of them quite as like I don't think Lugia or Chi and Power are quite as powerful in the overall meta. Even if they were pretty popular, there's definitely some in top 32, but yeah, overall, I don't think those decks are that powerful overall in the meta. There was a lot. I feel like the Canadians were all, I guess, maybe besides uh Cyrus. I guess not all. No, Jack Moore was playing a different deck as well. But a lot of the Canadians were on that Chi and Palace with the 4 Pokestop. A lot of them. I played against their names escaping me right now, but in round 5, I played against one of the Canadians on the Chi and Palace with they had the 4 Pokestop 2 B barrel thing.
Yeah,
Um which is interesting. It did
is that
not
what
run very
Kieran
well
played?
for them, but yeah, Kieran played it.
Yeah,
Like, I guess
so
Turbo Chi and Pow. I don't even
yeah,
know what you calls one.
yeah. I guess
Yeah, I guess.
only 5 supporters in the deck, which is pretty interesting. No boss's orders. 4
Yeah,
Irida, 1 Iono. That's it. That's all we need.
yeah. And still relying pretty heavily on the B barrel. They still play the 2 B barrel in there, which I think is so what you need. 'Cause I think it's how you recover as Chi and Pow in pretty much every single
This feels
matchup. You
very much
need B
like
barrel
my opponent doesn't get to play the game type of list, right? Where you're just going for like
through aggression.
turn
Yeah,
2 Radiant Greninja, cross switcher, canceling cologne, like
yeah,
blow up their little guys.
yeah. You're looking for like big plays, or even like a turn 2 Chi and Pow KO, like an Arceus V or something like that to set
Yeah,
them
yeah.
behind. Yeah, you're definitely looking for those like bigger plays as soon as possible. I just don't know how consistently the deck can do it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's it. I
probably
think
good
it's
against those things, but like, you're probably a little more questionable against like the
I mean,
lost
your lost
boxes or the
box matchup is still and
guardies.
stuff like
I mean,
that.
it
I
pretty
think.
much comes to your like Radiant Greninja play, right? Like if you can
Yeah,
do the Radiant Greninja thing against Gardevoir, you probably beat it a lot of the time, right?
because even then you can like play the Excalibur prize trade, right? You can use Excalibur as an attacker in that matchup as well
Yep.
against Gardevoir, and then you can use Shein Pals eventually when the prize trade is favorable. You're
All
basically
right.
just
Well, we
coming out of
did
revenge
make
all the
some
time.
predictions. We didn't get to do a full Worlds episode, which I'm pretty bummed out about, but we did do that
Yeah,
little mini special and made some predictions. So let's see who we think overall did better. So for the top 3 most played day 2 decks, you predicted Gardevoir, Lost Tina, and Chien Pao. I predicted Gardevoir, Lost Tina, and Arctina. So we were pretty similar, and pretty much
yeah.
Gardevoir is the only one we both got right here as far as a top 3 deck. Lost Tina was right outside, I think the 4th right, but
We're predicting for day 2 or day 1. We're
this
predicting
is
for
for
day
day
2, right?
2. Yeah.
Yeah, we were close. Where was Lostina at?
Huh? It was
Lostina
4th.
was it was fourth. Okay, yeah,
Nope, it
and
was
then
5th. It was 5th. My bad.
Yeah, okay, okay. And then for highest placing former world champion, I picked Shintaro, you picked Robin. Neither player made day 2.
Nope.
Um,
I
and they're
think
not
Shintaro did
on
do better than Robin though. Robin played Maridon and then I don't think was Shintaro was hanging around there the last few rounds. I didn't see Robin's name after like round 6, I think. So,
yeah. But yeah, neither made day 2, and they're not in top 64, but I believe it was Diego is actually the highest placing
yeah, I think you got like
former world champion
67th.
overall. Yeah. We actually like went through it all. The only other, I guess, yeah, those are the only 4 world champions who were at this Worlds, right? Oh no,
No,
Estrada as well. So
Estrada.
there's
Yeah, yeah.
five, five.
So it was
Yeah.
Henry and
Oh,
Diego
Henry
were
as
in day
well.
2.
6.
Henry, Diego,
No,
day
5.
2. Yeah. Oh no, and
5.
Andre. So 6.
Andre,
Yeah.
6. Okay, we had a lot of
We had a
them.
lot. We had a
Wait,
lot.
how did Andre do? Did Andre make day 2?
No, Andre didn't make day 2.
Oh, okay. All right, we need to do like a recount. All right, so there was 6. There was 6. Oh, there's
There were
more than I
4
thought.
former world champions in day 1 and none of them made day 2.
Mm.
But also, you could count
Washed.
Sajin getting 30th, top
Yeah.
32. He's a former world champion, though it's not in the trading card game. He did win
That would have been
2014
a
Worlds in VGC. That would have been a
That would have been
funny
a really
pick for one of
cool.
us.
Yeah, I would have definitely picked Sajin if I had thought that far about it because we didn't specifically say former TCG world champion. We just
Yeah,
said
yeah,
former
yeah.
world champion. So
I
if I had
think
just
it's
like
implied though, right?
yeah, but if I connected the dots, I would have definitely said Sajin to be honest. But I didn't really think about it that hard because that would have been like the cool pick to pick for sure.
Mhm.
So I guess yeah, highest placing former world champion non TCG or TCG or non TCG is Sajin, but TCG I believe was Diego.
For what
Um,
region will win? Azul said NA because he was predicting himself, and you got close. You almost
yeah.
made it, but you were correct as Vance did get the win for North America. and I predicted Japan, and the highest placing Japanese player was top 8, so didn't quite go as well for me there.
No, not quite. Still pretty close. And then one that did pretty well, one that I did actually really poorly on, I guess overall, was the highest placing Lost Tina. This was a little bit more emotional driven pick for me because I want to see Lost Tina do terribly. I picked top 32, and Chip picked top 8, and
Nope,
Pram with the carry.
I
Or
picked top
Chip picked
4.
top 4, excuse me, and then Pram came through with the carry, made it to the top 4 with the Lost Tina. And there was also one in top 8 as well. So Ostina did pretty well. I'm still not sold on the deck in that format or next format being actually a good deck overall, but it was good enough to get Chip's prediction right. That's for sure.
What deck are people underrating right now? You said Gardevoir and Turbo Lost Box, and I said Lugia.
I think
So
we
I don't
give
know
that
who we
one.
really give the edge to here. I mean, Lugia was the most popular deck in day 1, but didn't
Yes.
do the best in day 2, a couple in top 16.
We
Uh,
don't know what's conversion rate day one either. So,
yeah. And then obviously 2 Gardevoir in top 8, I think we probably give the edge to you. But I mean, on a technicality, because we said what deck are people underrating, and you picked 2 decks. Like, come on, man.
oh, yeah, true. I definitely would have put Gardevoir over Turbo Lost Box, but Turbo Lost was
Oh,
like
of
second one I was
course,
thinking
of
about.
course, of
Yeah, I would
course.
like. I think Gardevoir. It's not like everyone was like respecting it, but like I don't think we were going that extra. I guess Vance was. Vance had the box of disaster, so Vance was going the extra mile for the Gardevoir matchup. I don't think like that
And it
many
ended
people
up
were
paying off
going that
huge
far.
for him as well, because Tord had to attack into it in game 1, and it literally
Yeah,
won Vance game 1, the fact that that extra prize got taken.
it's a pretty good. Yeah, it's definitely pretty good in that matchup. Yeah, and even Tord had the lost vacuum and it still ended up getting some value. So,
Yeah,
uh,
Tord had to research it away. You could
uh,
tell he was, like, agonizing over having to research it away, but it's what he had to do.
the next one was
Uh,
what low tier deck has the highest chance to make top cut? I said Sablezard, and Pedro did play Sablezard. I don't know why Pedro played Sablezard again, but Pedro did do it. And you said Maridon.
I think we know
So
who wins this one, right? Like
yeah, Maridon did come through. Sajin and Mahone in the top 32. I don't even know if there's a Sablezard in the top 64, to be honest. Would you have to like check all these individually to actually find out? Well, actually, we could find out by probably going to
cards.
statistics, cards. Is there a Charizard?
Nope, but there is a
Nope.
Wo-Chien
Yeah,
EX.
I did not predict that. It was the Wo-Chien on anyone's bingo card. Wo-Chien in
Let's
top 64
go.
worlds.
Pitor getting 38th with the Wo-Chien. Pretty sick.
Wo-Chien,
Live
yeah. So no
Wo-Chien reaction.
Sablezards. No Sablezards top 64. So we'll give it to neither of them made cut, but Maradon was definitely closer on that one,
I
I
mean,
guess.
come on, come on. What deck will win? Azul picked Gardevoir. I picked Mew. Honestly, like
Mm,
collectively, we did pretty good here, right? Because
yeah.
I got it right. Mew won, and Tor got second with Gardevoir. So, like, things play out a little differently. Maybe your prediction is correct here, right? So I
It
think
was
we
pretty
we we
close.
did pretty good on that. But obviously, I got it right with the dub. And then next year's Worlds location, Azul predicts Spain. I predicted New York. Neither of us were correct. I was at least in the right country, though,
Yeah, you were in the right country. So
because
I guess
next year's Worlds is going to be in Hawaii.
well, you picked a city, I picked a country. That's already off
Yeah,
by
but
a
they
little
they
bit.
don't they never announce. They always announce a city that it's in, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they didn't this year, right? They
Well, that's
just
what I'm
said
saying. Like
Hawaii.
no, they said Honolulu. It was like it's gonna be in Honolulu,
Oh, did they? Okay,
which
yeah.
I guess that isn't. Well, is that a city? It's the whole
Yeah.
island. So I
It's the
guess right.
capital of the island.
Oh, is it? I thought Honolulu was the island. It's the city on the island. Yeah. So
Yeah,
me
it's the
picking
city.
Spain, but I don't know anywhere in Spain besides. Like I can't name anywhere in Spain right now off the top of my head besides Barcelona. That's just because the special event is coming up there. So, well, Madrid is in Spain, right?
Yes.
All right, so I got 2. So I wanna be able to name a city, so, but yeah, it is in Hawaii, which, that'll be pretty cool. I went to Hawaii last year, I think. Um, it was pretty cool. It's definitely a very beautiful place. Um, not, a location I'm personally overly excited about, but, I'll definitely be there. I do already have my Worlds invite for it, so there's no possibility of me having such a bad season that I don't end up with my Worlds invite, so I guess I will be there for sure.
All right. Well, let's move on. Before we get to guess that flavor text, we do have to take a second to thank our fantastic sponsor, Dragon Shield. Huge thanks as always to Dragon Shield for being a sponsor of the Uncommon Energy podcast. Dragon Shield makes, of course, some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products and accessories on the market, including sleeves, binders, deck boxes, and so much more. Azul, what sleeves did you go with for the World Championships, the biggest tournament of the year? Which Dragon Shield color did you pick?
Well, I want the purple to begin with, and then I had to re-sleeve to forest green.
I like
Um,
that color.
at some point, and then Jesper gave me some ivory ones, and Jesper claimed that the European Dragon Shields are better than Dragon Shields anywhere else. They felt the same, but that is what I used in Top Cut.
Oh
So shout out to
gosh.
Jesper for the ivory Dragon Shields that got me through top 8, not quite through top 4. Um, but yeah, those are the ones I those are the ones I ended up using throughout the tournament. I think I said blood. I was gonna go with the blood reds. I did bring some with me, but I ended up using them. So yeah, big shout out as always to Dragon Shield for being a sponsor of the podcast. You can find them at over on their website, dragonshield.com/webshop/EU or US, depending on where you're located. And of course, everywhere else, local game stores, big box retailers, and so on. And with that said, let's go ahead and let's get into that guess that flavor text. It is my turn this week to pick a card for Chip to guess. The way this works is one of us picks a card, reads the flavor text, and then it's on the other co-host to try and guess which Pokemon that flavor text belongs to. I closed the window that had the card that I was gonna guess or give to you, Chip. So why don't you go ahead and explain the rest of guess that flavor text real fast?
Yes, of course. So each one of us picks a card, reads the flavor text. The other host has to try to guess the card. You do get 3 lifelines to work with. You get 4 points if you don't use any lifelines, and you lose a point for each lifeline you have to use. And the 3 lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and read an attack name.
All right.
And Azul, you got the card? You ready to
Yeah,
go?
I got the card. All right. This one I think is gonna be pretty tough. Um, but here we go. Thought to be one of the first Pokemon to live in harmony with humans, it has a placid disposition.
Bro, there's no shot. I've literally given you this flavor text. This
Wait,
exact
actually?
flavor text. Yeah,
No way.
it's Skiddo.
All right, should I pick a different one then?
I don't know, man. That sounds like a 4 pointer for me.
Nope. Hang on, let me find another Pokemon. Have you actually given me that one before?
Yeah, that exact one.
Yeesh. All right, I got a new one. This one might be a little bit less hard.
Well, the other one wasn't hard at all, so.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It loves to eat roasted berries, but sometimes it gets too excited and burns them to a crisp.
Hmm. All right. Well, this is giving big starter, fire starter vibes. Obviously, I think, and it's a fire type. Could go with Charmander. Toasting the berries with its tail. I'm not gonna use the stage lifeline. I'm gonna assume this is a basic. I am gonna have you though tell me what set the card is from. See if this helps me out.
It's from Battle Styles.
Oh, so it is not Charmander. Yeah, no, Charmander was in Vivid Voltage. Yeah, okay. What is there a starter in Battle Styles? A fire type starter. Charmander, no. Cyndaquil, I don't think so. Torchic, no. There's Blaziken VMAX in Battle Styles, but not Blaziken. Oh, wait, no, Blaziken VMAX is in Chilling Reign. Um, it could be Score Bunny, but I think that was in Chilling Reign too. I'm really kind of locked in on the fire starter Pokemon. I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be. Let me have you read an attack name.
Ram.
Ram. Oh, it's Tepig. Is it Tepig?
It is
Let's
Tepig.
go.
How'd you lock in so easily on a fire starter? What?
That's just sounds like one of their characteristics, you
That's
know?
so ridiculous.
It's Tepig. Let's get it.
Likes to eat roasted berries. It's a fire starter. Well, roast. I mean, it burns them to a crisp, so it's definitely a fire Pokemon. I don't
Yeah.
know how you got to being a starter so quickly, though. I feel like that's like, all right. Oh, that's +2 for Chip.
That's really +6, to be honest.
No, dude, when I read the Skiddo as well, I was like, sounds a little familiar, but no, I don't think we've ever done this one before. So I
Yeah,
was like,
you
all
were
right.
just wrong.
Yeah, I was just wrong. Jeez. All right. Well, got a mulligan on that one. You still end up with 2 points, which I think keeps you ahead. I mean, you've been ahead,
I'm
but
pretty sure, yeah, I'm just ahead for sure.
you've extended your lead.
You'll catch up someday, bud.
I'm gonna try.
Well,
Let
there
us know
were
how
a
you
few
did.
reveals at the
Go
World
ahead.
Championships. Of course, the closing ceremonies every year, they like to tease something that's like upcoming in the game. And they also
Mhm.
announce the world's location. We already talked about worlds in Hawaii. But they revealed a ton of Pokemon cards, including a new mechanic. Mechanic, I guess. It's pretty similar to
What do
just
they
like
call
rapid strike,
it?
single strike, right? But we did get our first look at the Paradox Pokemon with these Pokemon having a label on them that signifies they are either ancient or future.
Is it a mechanic? Like, what do you call it? I've seen, like, Stefan post on Twitter about this before, being like, "It's not a mechanic," which it doesn't seem like it's a mechanic. I
Just like
think
a
I agree with.
classification.
Is that what you'd call it? It's basically just giving a title or, like, a title to some Pokemon so they can print a card that says it interacts with those Pokemon, right? So instead of saying you can attach this card to Screamtail or Iron Bundle or Iron Moth or Brute Bonnet or Roaring Moon
You gonna go through
or
all of them?
Iron Valiant, you can attach it to any of the ancient Pokemon, which are future or
It was also
ancient.
so funny seeing all the TCG players' reactions to these Pokemon being basics because they are all basics in the video
Yeah.
game. But everyone was like, "What? It's a basic Iron Moth, a basic Amoonguss type thing, Brute Bonnet, a basic Roaring Moon EX? Insane." But yeah, I mean they did kind of tease. Excuse me, there'll be some other cards to come out here that like work with these things. So like the Brute Bonnet has an ability Toxic Powder. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has an ancient booster energy capsule attached, you may make both active Pokemon poisoned. So, some tool card, it sounds like. I imagine one will
Yeah.
be ancient booster energy, one will be future booster energy.
Well, the
We
future
don't
might not get it. The future might get something else, but definitely, yeah, I mean, we could confirm the ancients have it, right?
well, but it's called booster energy in the video game.
Oh,
Yeah. There's,
is
like,
it?
an item in the video game that is called Booster Energy. It doesn't signify ancient or past, it's just, like, it is a
Well,
Booster
but
Energy.
now it's like signified that it'll be for the ancients, but maybe not the futures, right?
Yeah.
It's called an ancient booster energy capsule, but it's not called a future booster energy capsule.
No, there will definitely be a few there will be t there it'll be 2 cards, and
Well,
they'll
I
be
think
2
there'll
different
be.
things.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe we'll only get the energy boost capsule for ancients, but the futures will probably get something else as well. And these also aren't all the ancient and future Pokemon, right? There'll definitely be more.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not all of them. So we'll have like what 2 sets, maybe 3 sets of what are they called? Not Paradox Pokemon, right? Is that
Paradox
the
Pokemon, yeah.
yeah? So we'll have a couple sets of. I was about to call them ancient or future, but they're definitely 2 different things. So I'll have a set or two of Paradox Pokemon, I think for sure.
And some of these cards do seem pretty good. Right off the rip, I think Screamtail's one that stands out. It's got the Roaring Scream attack. It's a basic 90 HP Psychic type Pokemon, and its attack Roaring Scream for a Psychic and Colorless. It does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So, I mean, what Psychic type deck is pretty good that also damages your own Pokemon when you attach energy cards to it?
Yeah, definitely in there to give another tool to guard for. That's for sure. Um, I think the most interesting one is probably I mean, to be honest, I haven't read. This is the first time I've read the Brute. To be honest, actually, I hadn't read Brute up to this point. I don't know how I didn't read that one, but I read all the other ones. But probably the Iron Valiant. Um, I think this is gonna be like the new way to play Lost Zone. Is it'll just be Iron Valiant will be your Dragonite or Heavy Hitter 2 prize Pokemon, and then you have the Tachyon Bits ability, which says when you move it from your bench to the active, you get to put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So goes with kind of the theme of spread damage with Sableye. You can cut your energy down to just like Psychics and Waters because the Valiant takes Psychic Colorless. You're doing 200 damage. Dragonite usually does 250 for 3 energy. Now you can use the Iron Valiant EXs for 200, but then you get the plus 20 from the ability, but you can put that wherever you want, and you can have like multiple and kind of switch it back and forth between them to like put a bunch of damage at that. And who knows, maybe there will be a like a scoop up net for future Pokemon or something, and allow you to like chain Iron
That would
Valiants or
be
something
crazy.
like
There's
that.
no shot that comes out.
Just for future Pokemon. It would be
Maybe
limited
if
to
it's an
future
A spec,
Pokemon.
which we'll talk about in a minute, but um
And then Roaring Moon also seems really, really good. It has that frenzied gouging attack. Uh,
brutal attack name.
yeah, for Dark Colors, we still have Dark Patch, we still have Darkrai EX to recover Dark Patches. Knock out your opponent's active Pokemon. That's pretty good. If your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out in this way, this Pokemon does 200 damage to itself. So you're almost effectively knocking yourself up, but not quite. And
Yeah.
obviously, up against like Lost Zone decks, this one would be very good. But you probably have other attackers you could use up against Lost Zone decks. But up against anything really big that you can't quite get over with whatever your other attackers are, having a one of Roaring Moon seems pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, this feels like a really good one of in some sort of like Turbo Dark deck. We've seen Darkrai V-Star pop up a few times over the last few months. I don't know that Roaring Moon necessarily like takes it over the edge by any means, but
We got
maybe it
Arbok
does. I
coming
mean,
out
just the
though.
fact that you get like a clean one hit KO on something to close out the game. Yeah, that seems like a good use for me. And yeah, I like Iron Valiant a lot. I think it's going to be pretty solid. I do think like using it in the Lost Box, it does if you're like dropping Dragonite for it, like you losing the utility of Forest Sealstone, which is so big for the
That's
Lost
true.
Zone decks. So that's like a pretty big downside, I think, to moving into an EX Pokemon as opposed to a V. But who's to say you couldn't play like the Pidgeot or Lumineon or something in the deck still?
I mean, if we're
Um,
getting that scoop up net, then sounds pretty good to me. Wait,
Bro,
when
I
is
don't know
this?
where that idea has come from. There is no way that they are making a scoop up net for future Pokemon. That's just not
Why not?
happening.
Why would that doesn't even seem like it's
Why is that even
broken?
a thing that you like have thought is going to
Well, someone I
happen?
saw someone else bring it up at some point. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense for the Iron Valiant, and it makes sense for the Iron Moth, which says once in your turn when this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active spot. Actually, not as much to be honest. You may move any amount of fire energy from your other Pokemon to this. This attack just this Pokemon sucks, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
some of
good.
these kind of feel like filler, to be honest. Like the Iron Moth and Brute Bonnet don't seem great. The Iron Bundle is like kind of interesting. I don't think it's very good though. It's got the Hyper Blower ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. So it's like a searchable way to push your opponent's active Pokemon from the active spot, which I think could come up at some point.
That
But
Manaphy or Fion used to be good. That did that basically, right? But it went to the
yeah,
you didn't lose the Pokemon. It went to the bottom of your deck.
right, right. Yeah, it was a Fiona that did the same thing. So,
We'll have to
yeah, I
see,
mean,
wait
I
and see what other future and ancient Pokemon we get, and then what. Obviously, we're getting
also
some kind of cards that combo specifically with the Paradox Pokemon because the Bonnet kind of leaks that with the ancient
also
booster energy capsule.
it's a attack as well. Not irrelevant, right? We've seen attacks like this historically throughout the history of the game be pretty decent at some time. Refrigerated Stream, 80 damage. The defending Pokemon is an evolution Pokemon. It can't attack during your opponent's next turn. Now that I'm rereading it, it's a lot worse because the effect is on the defending Pokemon. It is not on the Iron Bundle, so
Oh,
ignore what I've said.
yeah, probably not great. Very limited use case, but yeah, you'd play it more for
Yeah.
the ability than anything when you want to like push your opponent's active out of the way and then bring it back up or something. And yeah, then the other thing that they revealed was A specs are coming back. That's basically all they told us though. They just told us A specs are coming back. That's it. We don't know in what
They
form.
just
Will it just be
flashed the
trainer
logo big
cards?
up on the screen.
Yeah, I expect it to probably be just trainer cards. Um, Actually, one thing I was curious about with the ancient and future Pokemon, how did they used to do? Is it possible that it's limited to like one ancient of each or something per deck or something? But that would be on the card, wouldn't it
No, it
be?
would say it on the card. That's what
Yeah.
Radiant
Okay.
Pokemon say it on the card.
Yeah. Yeah. And so did the other ones, the Prism Stars,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll be able to play 4 of any of the future ancient Pokemon you want them probably. But Ace Specs, I assume the rule for Ace Specs is going to maintain the same, where you can only play one Ace Spec in your deck. I guess they could change it to one of each Ace Spec, but I don't think they'll probably be doing that. It'll probably still just be one Ace Spec in your deck, and maybe they'll bring. Do you think they'll? How many, if any, of the old ones do you think they'll bring back?
I don't think they'll bring back computer search.
What about
Because it's just
dowsing?
kind of like blanket too good.
What was it kind of neutrally the best one?
Dude, computer search has gotten it's like spiked in price. I just looked up on TCG Player just to see what's happening over here. Lightly played, the cheapest one's like $55 after shipping. 68's the next one. And then near mint, if you go to near mint, the cheapest one, $61.
Yeah, I think I have like 4 computer searches.
I've
If they
got a
reprint it,
lot because I have a lot
yeah.
of old decks that have computer search in them. I think I
If
probably have like 8 computer search, to be honest.
yeah, if they reprint it, I'll be ready, I guess, but I think
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard for them to come up with I think we'll probably get some redos, which I think is fine. It's hard to come up
Mhm.
with there's only so much you can do in the game of Pokemon, right?
What's a
So,
what's a spec that's existed that you think, would be a good like, you would be fine to see it get reprinted?
I mean, Scramble Switch and Gold Potion were both always fine. I don't think
I
you'd have
think
to
Scoop
change
Up
anything.
Cyclone would be cool.
That would be cool as well. Yeah. So that's another cool one, I think. Scuba Cyclone, Scramble Switch, Gold
Just not
Potion.
dowsing machine and, computer search.
I don't hate the
I
idea
would
of them
like to
bringing those
see
back,
them
but
do, like I would like to see the A-Specs be things that are
a bit more
do
niche.
very specific things, right?
Yeah.
Not that are not just like blanket good cards, right?
Yeah. I
Which
wouldn't
is
hate
what
that, I
happened
guess.
with computer search and dowsing machine. Like for pretty much there was no reason to run any A spec other than computer search or dowsing machine unless you
Yeah.
were playing like Genesect or Victini EX, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's really cool. Like if they had Scoop of Cyclone, you mentioned Gold Potion, you mentioned Scramble Switch, like these are all cards that just kind of blanket do they do unique things. It's not just like a blanket good card that like you would guarantee like basically when you were building a deck when computer search was legal, you had a 59 card deck you were constructing because the first card was going to be computer search, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but I guess I kind of agree with you there. Maybe it's best if they don't give us something like is okay. Are you okay if they reprint Master Ball?
Yeah, Master Ball probably isn't good enough to be because it like only does one thing, right?
Yeah,
Computer
to like
search can be
overpower a
anything,
Scuba
dowsing machine
Cyclone.
can be almost anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I agree with you on that, to be honest, actually. Maybe they shouldn't bring back the computer search or the Dancing machine. But yeah, we'll see what they come up with. Hope they come up with some new stuff, and it's not just a bunch of reprints of the old stuff. I think we'll probably get something like a G booster or a V piece, where it's like one Pokemon specific, which I think is also fine. I think it's fine for that
Sure.
kind of stuff to exist as well. So I think we'll get something like that where it gives like a certain Pokemon a new attack, or maybe they'll come out with a couple of them that are attacks that anyone can use. They could have some more like that as well, which I don't think would be terrible to see. But yeah, definitely. I'm always a big fan of cards that are limited to a one of in your decks. I'm a big fan of like Radiance and Prisms and Ace Specs in the past. So I'm always a big fan of those cards existing in general. And we will have Radiant Pokemon plus Ace Specs at the same time, right? Which we don't too often have both around, or where the one ofs are or
I
double
guess
one
it depends
ofs.
on when rotation is going to happen, right?
Oh, do Radiants rotate with the next rotation? No, we're
Actually no,
around
you're
for
right. They
yeah,
don't.
they're
They
around for
don't.
another whole
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have like a half a season, maybe a little over half a season
I
with
wonder if rotation is gonna
both.
happen when this set comes out. That's kinda what I'm curious to see. Or will they wait and rotate, like, in January? Or f
I
when did they do it last year? Was it January, February?
it was yeah, it was February. But I think they have usually they would have already announced rotation at this point. So I think we're on track to follow whatever Japan does again, which is good. I think that's a good thing for them to do. So
Yeah.
otherwise we'd have already known about rotation for sure. So I think we're going to rotate
I think it's definitely
into
good
the
for there to
same
be, like, a global format, right? That
yeah, yeah.
everyone in the world is playing the same format.
Yeah, the formats are the same formats. We don't rotate exactly when Japan rotates, but we'll play the exact same formats they do just at a little bit later date. But who knows? Maybe we'll get a little bit. I think the next set will be a good tell on how if they are trying to or how close we are to like syncing up with set releases with Japan. Because Obsidian Flames and Rule of the Black Flame came out really close together. They already have 151. We're not getting 151 until next month, so we're a little bit off as far as that goes. But the next major set release will be a good tell, I think, on if they're trying to sync us up or not, and how close we are to being synced up.
And I think Azul from there, we can move on to some Obsidian Flames chat. So you probably have not had the most time to really get your
Zero
hands on the
games.
new set. You just got back from Japan yesterday, but I'm sure you've been reading cards, you've been looking at Twitter, you've been looking at tournament results, you kind of know what has been doing well. I mean, it's pretty much one card out of Obsidian Flames that's like a new potential meta deck, and that's Charizard EX. What is kind of just your opinion on the card? You know, tier one, is it super powerful or is it just kind of like, yeah, is it fine?
I think it's a really good card, but I don't think it's tier one, probably, based on the meta. I think a couple of the cards still existing are a little bit too powerful. Um, Yeah, a couple of the cards are a little bit too powerful, and overall, like when you compare to something like a Gardevoir EX and all the tools Gardevoir has, like Charizard isn't quite on that level either. So, tier two, maybe tier three deck the Charizard EXs, and we've seen a lot of people like abuse Arceus in it to help for the consistency factor. It also gives you a good attacker as well through the Arceus in the early game. But yeah, Charizard, a lot of HP, 330 HP is a lot. You got an ability that accelerates 3 basic energy into play out of your deck, so you don't need any additional kind of setup, right? You don't need to get
Yep.
the energy in the discard pile or whatever else it might be. They just come out of your deck as long as they're in the deck, you can get them. And then it has a good attack as well, right? 180 for 2 fire, pretty efficient. Plus 30 for each prize card your opponent's taken. You're ramping up to big numbers as the game progresses. So I think it's good. The card is definitely good. Is the meta right for it? I think is kind of the question. And from what I've seen, it's been pretty popular in these online tournaments, and it's kind of the only deck from Obsidian Flames that has seemed to make any kind of relevance in these online tournaments. But its success isn't like overly that it hasn't had that much success. So I would say
Yeah.
seems like an okay deck. So like I said, lean a little bit more towards it probably being like a tier 3 deck. And like I said, yeah, most people run it with like Arceus and a Pidgeot in there, of course, is in most lists as well. It's kind of just like, are you including the Arceus? But I think there might be a little bit more room to experiment with it. And I definitely am excited to get my hands on it finally, probably tomorrow or later today, I should say, when I'm streaming. So probably the first thing I do is play some Charizard.
Yeah, I mean, the card is definitely super powerful. I actually spent a pretty good amount of time with Charizard testing and tweaking and like just giving it a shot. The first list I had played like Delphox V and Canceling Clone. Like I thought that combo was just really good, and you could set it up pretty easily with Pidgeot plus Charizard. In reality, it was just kind of a lot to get rolling, even though it doesn't seem like that much, right? Especially with Pidgeot getting any one card out of your deck. But I was losing like pretty consistently to Lost Tina with the deck is kind of the issue I was finding. I was losing to like Iono slash Roxanne at the very end of the game. So the list I've been playing most recently is playing Charizard, it's Pidgeot, and Bibarel. No Arceus, it is playing Bibarel,
Full
which I
squad.
think is probably the best. I mean, I played it a good bit. I went from like losing pretty consistently to Lost Tina to like beating Lost Tina very consistently, which is still the most popular deck right now in the format. So definitely something you want to make sure you have a good matchup to. And I guess speaking of the Lost Tina or Gear Tina in general, that's kind of one of the decks that people have been adding some techs for the Charizard. Um, and I think it yet is yet to be seen, like exactly how strong Charizard would be. I agree with you. It kind of does seem like a tier 2 ish range deck. Like I think it'll be okay. It'll be played at tournaments somewhat, but like how worth it is it teching for like a tier 2 deck? And so we've seen people playing things like the Shaman V with its like revenge type attack. We've seen Superior V Star making its way into decks.
Leafeon.
Um
Yeah, there's been a whole
Leafeon
bunch
V
of
Star
yeah.
as well is one I've been seeing. So
I mean, if a
I don't
deck
know. What do you
is like
think of? Is it worth like having an answer like this in your deck right now?
maybe like right now because like the new decks will always be popular, more popular than they probably are justified being as the meta develops. But Charizard's the only new deck, so I think it's in the how popular it is like enhanced because of that, right?
Sure.
Like Charizard's the only new deck. It's a new deck, which means people want to play new decks, of course, because it's like people like playing Pokemon. The same thing with me. Like I like playing Pokemon, so instead of playing Gardevoir again, why wouldn't I want to play like the new cool cards, right? But the thing with like Obsidian Flames is only one new cool deck to play, which is Charizard. So that kind of enhances its overall popularity. Whereas if there's like 3 cool new decks from Obsidian Flames, it wouldn't be quite as popular. So if something is popular enough, even if the deck isn't that good, it's still worth teching for at a certain point, right? So I think maybe currently it is, but I think as Charizard kind of finds its place a little bit more, which probably won't be too high on the tier lists overall, probably best to kind of cut the tech cards as we kind of evolve from there. But like right now, it's probably like okay to play your Superior or your Shaman or whatever it might be, depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, I saw someone bring up a pretty good point on Twitter, talking about how popular is Charizard like actually going to be with Pittsburgh coming up just around the corner. I mean, if you think back to some of the cards that were kind of written off by a lot of the top level players, but are just kind of like the good cards from the set. Maridon, was pretty popular at the regionals right after it came out and
Yeah,
remained popular throughout that whole format and is still relatively popular and probably will be even more so after, Mahone. I think a lot of people are going to adopt the Mahone list moving
yeah.
forward. Um,
Kyurem
and
VMAX would be a big
think back
one.
to Kieran VMAX at Peoria last year, like a deck that pretty much I think it caught pretty much everyone by complete surprise. The fact that that deck
Yeah.
was like on the radar, like it was popping up in some online events here and there, but nowhere near as popular. I think it was like the third most popular deck at Peoria regionals or something like that.
Wait, Kyurem VMAX?
Yeah,
It was the most.
Oh, it was the most.
By a
I
decent
couldn't
amount
remember.
too. Yeah, it was, like, solidly the most popular deck at Peoria, which
Okay,
is
yeah.
crazy because the deck was bad, but, like, it was pretty
Sheesh.
wild. And then it still stayed in, like, the top 3, I think, the whole time, throughout pretty much the whole format. It was still up there pretty consistently. I think it was the most popular deck in the following regional, and then it started to fall off towards once we got to Salt Lake City, I think Palkia became the most popular deck again, but, yeah, it was the most popular deck by, like, a solid chunk at Peoria, which was pretty wild, but it was, like, the big cool new card. It was also it was, like, pretty cheap too because it wasn't overly hyped, and then so if you wanted to play kind of like a new deck, new cards, like, it wasn't a terrible deck, but it wasn't like
Yeah, I
a
wonder if the
broken deck or anything.
cost of Charizard is gonna have an impact on its playability, right? I mean, I think it is still
It
like
might.
$30.
Who knows?
Pidgeots are
Maybe
like
this will just be
$10.
this might just be saving people from playing, bad decks, you know? Like, if Charizard's really not that good, maybe the cost of Charizard is really just saving people in the end from playing a not so good deck,
So we do see, based on just like the online tournament results from the past week or so, Lost Tina still up there at the top, a deck that you have not been a big fan of. I'm not the biggest fan of it either. Why do you think it keeps sitting atop the most played, and it does still continue to do decently in tournaments as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I've said before, I don't think Tina's just, like, a couple points away, I think, from being actually what I would consider a good deck. Like, the way whenever I call a deck bad, like, if you think about, like a spectrum of decks, on the left side if they're bad, on the right side if they're good, as soon as they pass, like, the midway point by just, like, 1 point to the bad side, I just always call decks bad at that point because it's like a deck I would never consider playing at a tournament. But if it's just 2 points over to the good side, then all of a sudden I would say, "Yeah, it's a pretty good deck. It's a pretty solid deck." And it's a deck that I
Mhm.
would then consider playing at tournaments. But as soon as a deck that crosses the threshold of I wouldn't consider playing at a tournament, I just, like, call the deck bad, which I think when people hear me say that, they're just like, um,
Yeah, why would
I think the deck is
people
truly
expect
awful.
that when you say a deck is bad, you don't mean it's actually bad?
Yeah, I don't think it's, like, truly terrible. It's just, like, I don't know, it's not a good deck I don't think it's that good of a deck, and maybe it changes a little bit, maybe this meta shifts up a little bit more, but if all we're adding is Charizard, I don't see how Lost Tina is that much better of a deck. I mean, 2 of them did get top 8 at Worlds, so, yeah, I'm still not a big fan of Lost Tina. I think it's a really, like, fluky deck overall, and it's, like, you don't really have that much control with it. Um, so yeah, I'm not a big fan. It is the most popular deck still, but it was kind of that way going into Worlds as well, right? So, like, maybe just not that much has changed. My opinion really hasn't changed that much of it. Maybe if Charizard is that much, if is that good, and the matchup is that good for Lostina, then maybe that would sway my opinion of how good I think Lostina is. But Charizard doesn't seem to be like a real meta shifter, or shouldn't be a deck that the meta changes around that heavily. So I don't think that should be a big impact on Tina's success overall.
Speaking of Worlds and decks that did well at Worlds, obviously Worlds was won by Mew VMAX, the deck you played at the World Championships as well. Hasn't really been doing as well. It's the seventh most played on Play Limitless right now. And I think in big part, people are kind of scared of that Charizard matchup. It does feel like it has a pretty terrible Charizard matchup, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty tough because I mean, just 330 HP is a lot of HP. I think maybe Mew would have to go like back to some like path type build because,
Yeah. That's hard
um,
to do in the fusion build though.
yeah, I think you maybe have to go away from the fusion build. I don't know, but then you're like losing to Spiritomb every time. So yeah, Charizard matchup like Charizard has been pretty popular in the online terms. I think it's like been in top 4 most popular. So,
It's the second most
um,
popular.
second most popular overall. I think in most recent tournaments it's dropped down a little bit. Um, but Yeah, I mean, that's tough. Like, they turn 2 candy out of Charizard and knock out your active, like knock out a Mew or something. Like, what do you do? Like, you can 1-hit KO it, but you need actually, even with Quad Tablet, you can't 1-hit KO it. So, like, yeah. That's just kinda tough, to be honest. I actually don't know how you handle it, to be honest. And then even if you do that, they get another Candy Charizard out or Charmeleon into Charizard. If they play the Charmeleon, then you just lose, so
I
and that
think the
matchup seemed
answer is
abysmal.
obvious, right? And Xander pointed it out on Twitter, right?
Oh, the Excelgor?
You got to
Yeah.
put the Acelgor in the deck.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if Charizard's popular enough and that actually swings the matchup,
The thing
into
is,
your
though, is
favor
like
or
you
just like close
need two
enough.
damage modifiers still for Acelgor.
Oh, you do? Jeez.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, time for Defiance Band or whatever it's called. Get it in
yeah.
there. The time is now. Yeah, it seems tough from you. If Charizard is popular enough and good enough to actually warrant, being worried about, which I don't know if it actually is, to be honest. So something we have to wait and see. But I think from the results I've seen from tournaments, like Charizard is played, but it's like not like doing that well. in these online tournaments. It's just being played because it is like the only cool new deck, right? Nothing else is really cool that is new. So I think Charizard is just kind of that's what's carrying it. So it probably like as far as like if we're looking forward towards Pittsburgh, if you want to play Mew and you think you have a terrible Charizard matchup from your testing, it's probably fine to just take the loss to Charizard. You probably won't see very many, if any, throughout your rounds, anyways.
There's one other card from Obsidian Flames I think probably worth talking about right now. Not
The
an
only other
archetype in
card,
and of itself, but it is Pidgeot EX, baby. Plenty of people have been playing the Pidgeot. One of my favorite cards from the set. Um, yeah, I mean, this has been played in most Charizard lists, and it's been making its way into Excalibur decks as well. Kind of what we predicted, right? The fact that it would be
yeah,
played in decks that are already playing rare candy. Something that I found pretty quickly when I was testing decks with Pidgeot EX, though, was that you have a pretty tough time against Iono and Path to the Peak.
yeah, I could see that. Iono Path to the Peak gonna make things pretty tough when your recovery setup type Pokemon is the Pidgeot. It's gonna make things pretty annoying. Yeah, I don't know if there's really a yeah, maybe B barrel, like specifically for Excalibur, maybe you do have to kind of go back to the B barrel because of that. You could do both, I guess.
That's what I'm doing in Charizard, buddy.
Like you kind of have the bench space as well if you don't play the Arceus, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. I could see you playing both. Both seems fine. Seems reasonable.
I think it's harder in Excalibur because you need a stage two, like you need your Excalibur setup and your attacker, but it's a
Yeah.
little easier in Charizard because your stage two is your attacker, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you're less bench pressured, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
One thing
I
that's
could
been
see it.
cool as well with Charizard that I've liked when I've been playing games is like so for a while I was kind of unsure what Radiant Pokemon to play, Greninja or Charizard. I even tried Radiant Alakazam for a little bit because like you two hit KO a lot of things in the early game, so just like save some of that
Yeah.
damage. Wasn't super good. Radiant Charizard's super good in the deck because it allows you to have really get back into games when your opponent goes down to just like two prizes left. It's not too infrequent that you get to that position and you have no two prize Pokemon in play because they just knocked out
Yeah.
your Charizard. So you can just go with a Charizard or the Radiant Charizard, send it up, attack, take a knockout, go down to one or two prizes, whatever it is, and then your opponent has no way to win the game the next turn.
Yeah. And even if you did have a Charizard in play, it'd probably be pretty hard for them to win anyways. You have fresh 330 HP Pokemon on your
Yeah,
bench.
yeah,
So if you
yeah.
just like Iono them that turn, they can't really go after it there. So
It's been
yeah,
specifically against Lostina, which they can knock it out
that's
if they
true.
haven't used their V Star power yet. But
Yeah, yeah, I guess I could see it.
I think that's probably one of the Charizard is like probably one of the draws of people still liking Lostina a lot because it does feel like it's probably pretty decent against the deck, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that is the. I mean, I don't know. Like, not that, like I said, not that much change in the meta. So if people thought Lost Tina was the best deck last format, I don't know why they wouldn't think it's the best deck this format, right?
Yeah.
Like, really, we didn't have that much switch up.
Well, all right. Azul, any other closing thoughts? Anything else you want to say about Obsidian Flames?
No, got to get my hands on some of the cards, try some stuff out. Definitely checking out the Toad Scroll as well.
Let's go.
And I don't even know how much more there is, to be honest. There's the Vespa Queen, Toad Scroll, Charizard,
Oh
Pidgeot,
yeah,
and
what happened to your
things.
Vespiquen deck, bro?
I mean, I haven't worked on it at all because I haven't been home, but I'll be working on it soon. Did we really get anything else in the set? Was that it? Did I just name every
Tyranitar
single?
EX seems okay.
Okay, Tyranitar EX. That's a
It's got a lot of
possibility.
HP, does a lot of damage.
A lot of
Kind of
HP, a
the
lot of
theme of the
damage.
stage twos these days.
Yeah, and actually, that's actually one thing I wanted to mention is like Pidgeot. We'll see a lot more play once we get down to like more stage two meta, right? Maybe even where maybe even just one rotation. You know, get rid of Battle VIP Pass. Maybe that's enough to help these stage two decks out a little bit more. We'll see. But I don't know. Lost Zone stuff is still around, so it might still be tough. Like Lost Zone still might be kind of king overall in as far as like gatekeeping goes until another rotation, which would kind of suck to have to go through two rotations. At some point, do you think they would ever just be like, all right, maybe we should just like ban a Lost Zone card to just like move things along a little bit, or are
Probably
they really going to
not.
make us sit through two rotations to
They
actually?
really don't like banning cards from standard.
It just kind of sucks because I feel like there's so much potential. It's really hard to like I mean, you can always test out all these stage 2 decks, right? But if they just always lose to Lost Zone over and over again, so you're not gonna play them at tournaments, right? Or like
Yeah.
even like play them heavily on ladder and stuff. Because I feel like the gatekeeper at this point really is Lost Box more so than anything.
Well, we appreciate everyone listening. As always, if you did enjoy the episode, please be sure to leave a rating, a like, a review. Easiest and fastest way to support the podcast. You can also check us out over on x.com, Twitter, whatever it is. Follow me
I
at
still
Chip
call it
Ritchie.
Twitter.
Yeah, it's still Twitter. It was kind of funny at Worlds. We were showing the social logos, and it said X.com, like it had the X logo, not Twitter. It just felt wrong, dude.
People gotta stop
Uh,
giving in. Maybe we can get Twitter back. It works so well too because you had Twitter, you did tweets. Now what are we doing? We're
we're
on
just
X.
posting.
We're
It's just
we're
like every
Xing.
other social media.
Yeah, but I want to tweet, bro. We had retweets, but now it's just a It was everything was unique about it. You know what I'm saying? But now it's just
No,
not good.
not good. You can follow myself at Chip Ritchie. You can follow Azul at Azul_GG. And you can also follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Appreciate the
Thanks for the
support as.
continued support.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
appreciate the
That's
support as
that's what you
always.
normally say. So
Yeah.
I'm jumping in at your part, man. I'm tired. I'm beat. I'm like
I
totally
was gonna
gassed
say
right now.
we had a little bit of a low energy podcast. I feel like I'm still adjusting. I just got back yesterday, so kind of still adjusting. I woke up. I woke up at like 5 a.m. this morning, so I'm getting a little tired. Chip sick and tired. So a little bit of a low energy cast this week around, but I hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. And we'll catch you next week back on normal schedule, and hopefully on normal schedule, progressing forwards at 7 a.m. Eastern Tuesday mornings. Catch you next week. Peace.
Yep. And we'll see everyone as well in the bonus episode. Everyone on Patreon, at least.